सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Verse number 36. अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसे यथैधांसि समिद्धोऽग्निः भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा। We are in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Towards the end of the 4th chapter, where Lord Krishna is singing the glory of the knowledge. Lord Krishna described the nature of the knowledge in the verse 35 of this chapter 4. Yajñātvā na punarmoham evam yasyasi Pandava. He Pandava, he Arjuna, Yajñātvā, knowing which, gaining which knowledge? Punaha evam moham na yasyasi. You will never ever get this kind of moha or delusion or aviveka of taking Atma, Anatma to be Atma. The primary moha, which means aviveka, inability to distinguish one thing from the other, and taking one thing to be other than what it is. The typical example of moha is the rope snake example, where one does not know the object as rope and takes that rope as a snake, which is quite contrary to what the rope is. Similarly, we do not know what the nature of self is, that Atma is limitless, ever free, untouched by any limitations of the world, limitations of samsara, limitations of the body, mind, sense complex, which is like a costume. That I am ever limitless. That is the nature of Atma, nature of ourself. What is moha? Not knowing what the true nature of the self is, not knowing that I am limitless, I am ever free. या आत्मा अपहत पापमा विजरः विमृत्युः विशोकः विजिगित्सः विपापः अपिपासः. Upanishad says, या आत्मा अपहत पापमा, the self is ever free from any sin, sinless. Vijarah vimrityuhu, devoid of the old age and death, devoid of the hunger and thirst, devoid of grief and delusion. That's the nature of ourselves. Grief never touches the self. Hunger, thirst, old age, death, all of these exist someplace. They exist in the body, mind, sense complex. But then they never affect or touch the self. Ekastatha sarvabhutantaratma nilipyate loka dukkhena bahyah. Kathopanishad says, Ekastatha, Atma, the self, conscious is one, non-dual. Sarvabhutantaratma, the self of all the beings, that's what you and I are. न लिप्यते लोक दुखेन बाह्यः न लिप्यते लोक दुखेन is untouched, untainted by the pleasure and pain and all the limitations existing in the loka, in this body, mind, sense complex. Why is it so? Bahyah. Because Atma transcends. That's the true nature of ourselves. Knowing the self, yad jnatva, knowing the self in this manner. Not knowing the self in this manner, and then identifying with the non-self, the body, mind, sense complex, taking that to be the Atma, and therefore taking all the limitations to our limitations. And therefore, the very perception we have of our own self as a limited being is the cause of all grief. That also is the cause of Arjuna's grief. The first chapter was Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna Vishada. The grief that Arjuna was suffering from, which every human being is suffering from. On account of not knowing the self truly for what it is, and taking it to be contrary to what it is, taking the limitless self to be limited. And Bhagavad Gita's Upadesha, the teaching, is to help Arjuna become free from shoka or grief. Shoka and moha, grief and delusion. Grief causes delusion, delusion causes grief. Delusion means aviveka, moha. About self causes grief. And that grief in turn causes the wrong perception of the situation. There again there is delusion there, aviveka there. And Bhagavad Gita addresses this fundamental problem of human being. That's why Lord Krishna expounded upon the nature, true nature of the self. In fact, the verse number 36, which we are talking about, itself describes in the second line, Yena bhutanya sheshena drakshasyatmanyatho mai. Yena jnanena, by gaining which knowledge? You see that all the beings are in you and you are in all the beings are in me, the Lord, I am in all the beings, and that you and I are one. When I realize that I am in fact the self of all, I am in fact the very basis of all the names and forms, the whole universe. I am one, non-dual, and therefore limitless. Knowing me in this manner, there can be no cause for delusion or grief. Yat jnatva napanmutpadarmoham evam yasyasi Pandava. Hey Pandava, hey Arjuna. Yat jnatva, gaining which knowledge? Not the knowledge of the true nature of the self. That you are the self of all. You are therefore non-dual, you are limitless, ever free, unaffected by duality, unaffected by all the limitations the duality represents. In freedom there cannot be grief. Arjuna, you will abide in freedom, in ananda, in wholeness, happiness. And once you gain that knowledge, ignorance does not stage a comeback. There may be darkness in a room, but once you bring in light, when light is there, darkness cannot stage a comeback. Meaning that here, Arjuna, when you gain this knowledge, ignorance, therefore moha, the aviveka caused by ignorance, cannot come back. Na punarmoham evam yasyasi Pandava. You will not get the moha, the delusion like you have right now, that I am Arjuna, a limited being, helpless, helpless. That won't be there. Meaning that this knowledge will make you free from grief and delusion, make you free. And this grief and delusion are only veiling the happiness which is true nature of ourselves, meaning that gaining this knowledge, you will abide in your true nature, which is happiness, ananda, wholeness, limitlessness. Thus, having described the nature of knowledge, to emphasize the importance of knowledge, the value of knowledge, how this knowledge should become the sole purpose of the human being, because only the human embodiment is as though designed for this knowledge. Meaning that we can cultivate our persona, our being, our mind, sense complex, that it becomes fit for this knowledge. So only the human embodiment that we can grow emotionally, spiritually, that become fit for this knowledge. That Lord Krishna earlier described that when thus a desire for knowledge arises in you, you approach the learned and wise teachers, please them with your sincerity, and they will certainly impart the knowledge to you. So the fourth chapter of this Bhagavad Gita concludes with the knowledge. And to emphasize the importance of this knowledge, Atma Vari Drashtavya hai. Sage Yajnavalkya says to Maitreyi, hey Maitreyi, Atma, self must be known. Drashtavya. Saha Anveshtavya sa Vijignyasitavya, Chandogya Upanishad says. That we should inquire into the nature of the self. We should seek to know the self and gain the knowledge of the self. By which one attains all the desire, one attains all the worlds, attains everything, all the ultimate goal in life. And therefore, to emphasize the importance of the knowledge, Lord Krishna sings the glory of the knowledge. The verse 36 which we just read, Lord Krishna says, Api chedasi papebhya sarvebhya papakrittamaha. Papa. The word papa is papa means an action which is in violation to the basic law or moral law or harmony of life or harmony in the universe. And naturally, when we violate the law, the consequences, we get violated. As Puja Swami is very fond of giving the example, if you rub a margosa tree with your bare back, it has a very rough bark. And if you rub that tree with your bare back, naturally you are going to be hurt. Because when you rub the law, you will be rubbed. So this action which is against the moral order, the spiritual order, is called papa. And an action which is in keeping with that order is called punya, virtue and vice. Virtuous action, vicious action, if you want to translate it that way. Suppose somebody, imagine the person who is the greatest of greatest sinners. Even a person like that, Sarvam Jnana Plaveneva Vrujanam Santarishyasi. Sarvam Vrujanam, the entire ocean of this papa. Jnana Plaveneva Santarishyasi. By the boat of knowledge, you will be able to cross the entire ocean of pain, sorrow, papa. That is the glory of this knowledge. Yathaidham se samiddogni bhasmasat kur. Lord Krishna gave another example in the verse 37. That just as the fire turns to ash, any combustible wood is turned to ash. Edham, see, firewood. Samiddhagni, a blazing fire, turns the firewood into ash. Jnanagni sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tatha, in a manner similar to that, Jnanagni, this fire of knowledge, burns the bondage completely. Continuing, and that being the case, therefore, Lord Krishna continues with the glory of the knowledge in the verse 38 and also tells us the process of gaining that knowledge. So the verse 38 says, Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani vindate. Nahi jnanena sadrusham. Sadrusham comparable. Jnanena sadrusham comparable to knowledge. Pavitramiha na vidyate. Pavitram, the purifying, sanctifying. Iha in this universe, na vidyate does not exist. Here Arjuna, there is nothing comparable to knowledge in purifying, sanctifying. Knowledge is the greatest purifier, greatest sanctifier. Pavanam, Shuddhikaram, purifying. Well, there are many entities in the universe which are known to be Pavanam, Shuddhikaram, purifiers. Fire is a great purifier. Air is a great purifier. The Ganges is said to be a great purifier. There are those who release us from sins. All the papa would be removed by if you take a dip in the Ganges, so it is said. Thus there are many purifiers, no doubt about that. But nothing can stand comparison to knowledge. Jnanena sadrusham pavitram ihana vidyate. A purifier, sanctifier, comparable to self-knowledge does not exist. For the very simple reason, knowledge simply dispels ignorance. Just as light simply dispels darkness. And so also knowledge only dispels ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, then the consequence of ignorance also get destroyed. Just as in the rope snake example, by the knowledge of rope, the snake is destroyed as though. Because snake is only a projection. And when the snake is gone, then the consequence of perception of the snake, namely fear, that also goes away. No separate effort is needed to remove the consequence of ignorance. Thus, as we just saw, how ignorance of the self is twofold. One is that I do not know the true nature of myself, which is limitlessness. And on the contrary, I take myself to be a limited being. In fact, as we saw in earlier verses, Karamanya karameh pashed. One who sees the self as actionless. Even when action is being performed, one who knows that I am actionless. Never kinchit karomiti. I do not do anything. Which is a fact. Karmani akaramaya pashed. When karma is being performed, one sees that akarma, I am actionless. And it is not that I become actionless when I come to know myself. I am always actionless. However, not knowing myself is actionless. The action, kartritva, the doership that belongs to the body, mind, sense complex is superimposed upon the self, and I falsely take myself to be a karta, an agent, a doer of the action. प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ताहम इति मन्यते. Actions are all performed by the modifications of matter, this body, mind, sense complex. Ahankara vimudhatma, because of the identification of this body, mind, sense complex, which is an instrument, which is a costume. Kartaham iti manyate, he falsely takes himself to be karta or a doer. Therefore, actions are only performed by karta, by a doer. And therefore, Atma as though performs actions because of the wrong notion that I am a doer. And the karta becomes a bhokta because the karta, the performer of action, is naturally accountable for the outcome of the action. So when I perform action now, subsequently I will become a bhokta, the experiencer of the result of the action. And unfortunately, this process or chain of kartritva, bhoktritva, that bhoktritva meaning experiencing the result of the action, again creates in me a reaction of harsha, shoka, elation, depression, happiness, unhappiness, which in turn creates desire either to perform more action or avoid something. Ragadveshas are created. They create desire, they create action, karma, karma phala. That chain of karma phala is going on account of taking myself to be a karta or a doer, which is the product of ignorance. There is no such entity as a doer. It is purely a product of ignorance. You know why am I saying that? Because if you really trace the source of all the action, you know what you will find? You will find that the basis of action is actionless. Because Atma is actionless. Consciousness, Chaitanya is actionless. Anatma is unconscious, cannot perform action. So really speaking, there is nobody to perform action. It's purely a projection. Actionlessness is reality. But not knowing the reality, I take myself to be a performer of action. And therefore, then I become accountable for the outcome of the action. That is called papa here. Word papa, or the sin, is used as karma phala. It includes punya also. Punya and papa, both of them are included because they are both the outcome of action. And both punya and papa perpetuate the cycle of birth and death. This we discussed earlier. That papa results in dukkha and the lower embodiments. Punya results into sukha and higher embodiments. But there is birth regardless. Meaning that we cannot become free from the cycle of birth and death, and therefore a sense of limitation and grief. It is this knowledge that I am actionless, that I am the self of all, I am limitless, I am actionless, that removes the notion that I am a doer. Knowledge simply removes ignorance and the product of ignorance. That kartaham, I am a karta, I am a doer, agent of action, is purely a notion about the self. Just as a snake is purely a notion about the rope, and therefore when the knowledge of rope takes place, the notion of snake goes. Similarly also, when the nature of knowledge of self takes place, the notion of the doership goes. It is doership which is the basis of all the karma. So doership is the basis of all papa. Therefore, even if we remove some papa, even all the papa, still, as long as karta or the doer continues to exist, so long new papas will be performed anyway. Therefore, there cannot be a total elimination of papa punya as long as the sense of doership is there, and that will be there as long as the self-ignorance is. Therefore, when Lord Krishna says, there is no purifier comparable to self-knowledge, that is so because the self-knowledge removes the notion of kartrutva or doership, which was responsible for all the karma. Therefore, the basis of karma is gone. Therefore, there cannot be any more karma on the part of the wise person. So all this was discussed elaborately in the verses 18, 19, 20, 21 up to 24. Karmanya vipravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Karmani abhipravrittopi, even though he is totally engaged, wholly engaged in performing action, in fact he doesn't perform any action at all. And thus, by removing kartrutva, the very cause of karma or the papa is eliminated, whereas the other purifiers may eliminate karma but not the karta, therefore the potential of further karma and papa remains. Whereas in this case, the very potential of papa goes away. In that sense, Lord Krishna says, there is no purifier comparable to self-knowledge. Because Arjuna had this notion that I will be sinner, I will be killer of these people. They will all go to Naraka and I will be responsible for them. So all of these complexes Arjuna is entertaining. In that sense it is said there is no purifier, Arjuna, comparable to this knowledge. Having thus described the glory of knowledge, the second line of this verse 38, Lord Krishna says, Tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. Tad jnanam yoga kalena yoga samsiddha swayam atmani vindati. Tad jnanam, that knowledge, the greatest purifier. Yoga samsiddha kalena vindati. Yoga samsiddha. Samsiddha. One has perfected oneself by yoga. What yoga? The yoga that Lord Krishna has described so far, karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Performing karma or the duty in the spirit of yoga, which is the spirit of worship, spirit of offering to the Lord, spirit of contribution, freedom from the personal agenda or self-centered agenda, an action which is an appropriate action. That's why we already use the word duty. Duty means what is to be done in a given situation. What is a right thing to be done in a given situation can be called duty. And that's called karma here. And Lord Krishna talks about yoga. Even that right action also, when performed with the right attitude, that action also is performed with a personal agenda, with a self-centered agenda, then that only creates bondage. Meaning that creates ragadveshas. Because selfishness is always accompanied with fear, insecurity. Insecure person always seeking security. And what he looks upon as the source of security, he has raga or attachment. Insecure person will always brand things. Unhappy person will brand things. Hey, this will give me security. This will give me happiness. This will give me comfort. I think that threatens me. That's how the mind is. It's a projecting mind. So as long as insecurity is there, self-centeredness is there, projection will be there, therefore ragadveshas will be there, bondage will be there, pain will be there. And therefore freedom is to gain freedom from this self-centeredness, which is the primary cause of all our grief, all our pain. No doubt, self-centeredness will ultimately go only when I realize that I am the self of all. But to a large extent, the self-centeredness can be progressively removed by deliberately entertaining the attitude of selflessness, other-centeredness, or offering to Ishvara, being a contributor. This has been discussed millions of times, but that's called yoga. And that is purifying. There is also knowledge. Why do we call yoga? Because it is means of knowledge. This very attitude is born of knowledge or understanding the true nature of self, that I'm ever free. I already accomplished what needs to be accomplished because wholeness, completeness is my nature. There's nothing to be accomplished in life. It is that understanding which we call Viveka, is what enables me to translate that understanding into selflessness. Because I'm already what I'm supposed to be, I don't have to strive for anything. Let make myself available to the world for what the world needs, because I don't need anything personally. Although that is not my experience. It is fake it till you make it. As though I do not have any need. Because then alone I can be a contributor. I don't feel rich within, but I make myself, I think that I'm a rich person. I'm rich and therefore I give out. So yoga is attitude. The attitude which is compatible to knowledge or reality. Because wholeness, completeness, and therefore the selflessness is my nature, is the reality about myself. Therefore, the attitude of selflessness is in harmony with my true nature. That's why whenever I display that attitude, I'm at peace with myself. I feel good about myself. I have done something right. So living life simply in harmony with the reality of myself, reality of life. Because of ignorance now, I have a distorted perception of myself, therefore my attitudes are not in keeping with the reality of myself, no, not in keeping with reality at all. And therefore a whole process of turning around, that transformation has to take place, that's what yoga does. And as I progressively become free from self-centeredness, I become free from impurity, because self-centeredness is the primary impurity. So yoga also is purified. That's why I say it is knowledge, because the attitude is based on knowledge of the reality of the self. That's why karma yoga can become the means of self-knowledge. That karma yoga creates a state of mind which is what we call antahkarana shuddhi, or purity of mind, where there arises vividisha, desire for knowledge. And when I approach the teacher with that frame of mind, then the upadesha of the teacher works. Knowledge takes place. Yoga samsiddha. What is time consuming is this yoga samsiddhi. This gaining perfection of purity of the mind is a time consuming process. The shama, dhamma, uparama, this is a time consuming process. Because it has become a habit of my mind to be self-centered. The raga dvesha, the reactions, have become a nature of my mind as though. And I have to completely turn around that nature. Like turning around a river and taking it to its source, something like that it should be done with our own mind. So mind becomes progressively calmer and calmer. The calmness is the characteristic of purity. Kalena vindati, Lord Krishna says, in time, in long time. What takes time is the process of self-purification. Oh, you may say, Swami, no, I've been listening to Vedanta for so many years, but that's all part of self-purification process. The Karma Yoga is the means of purification. And Shravanam of Shastra also is a part of purification process, because it gives me, it removes my wrong notions, gives me clarity. But kalena, Bhashyakara is mahata kalena, in long time. Don't tell me, Swami, a long time. How long? Well, already long time have elapsed. Who knows? This is not a one-time process or one lifetime. It is going on from the, for a long time. I do not mean that it will take long time now, but it has been a continuing process. And if we find that it takes time, then we should have patience. That is why Lord Krishna says kalena, in course of time. Yoga samsiddha, the one who has thus purified the mind of the impurities of raga dveshas, of the reactions. One who therefore enjoys a calm and composed mind, who enjoys a self-satisfaction, therefore composure, abiding, self-abidance. In a mind like that, the upadesha of the teacher will work very quickly. So Lord Krishna says, Tat swayam vindati. This aspirant will gain the knowledge by himself. No doubt, we need the upadesha of the teacher. That's called vichara. No doubt that is needed. The shravanam, mananam, nididhyasam is needed. Which can be all called part of yoga samsiddha. The first step of yoga is the karma yoga. Lokesmin dvidhanishta praprokta mayanaga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So first step is karma yoga, second step is jnana yoga. So it's yoga samsiddha. We will gain perfection first through karma yoga and then through jnana yoga. Jnana yoga means shravanam, manam, nididhyasanam. Contemplating upon the nature of the self. Swam vindati, one gains knowledge by oneself. Atmani vindati, Lord Krishna says, in one's own self. Meaning that one gains knowledge by oneself, in one's own self, in one's own mind. What is meant is that somebody else cannot give me knowledge. The teacher can certainly give me upadesha. He can impart teaching, he can give a guidance, he can give clarity, everything he can give. But to gain clarity, to gain guidance, and then to perform in keeping with that guidance is my job. That was swam vindati. Lord Krishna says, one gains his knowledge in one's own self, one's own mind. It is not that the Guru gives the knowledge. The student himself gains the knowledge. Guru cannot transfer the knowledge also that is in him. Neither can Guru transfer knowledge that belongs to him, nor can Guru create knowledge in me. I have to do. Meaning Lord Krishna emphasizes here this self-effort. The 6th chapter, Lord Krishna says, Uddared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. One should rescue oneself by oneself. Emphasizing the importance of self-effort. Yes, I am surrendered to teacher, surrender to scriptures, surrender to Ishvara. With that disposition of mind, I am listening to the scriptures, I am contemplating myself, I am doing everything. But still, it is I who has to do that. It is I who gains the knowledge by doing what is necessary. Tat swayam, tat jnanam, yoga samsiddha swayam kalena atmani vindati. Yoga samsiddha, one who has gained the perfection by yoga. Kalena in time, swayam by himself, atmani in his own self, in his own mind, vindati, he gains that knowledge. Then in next verse, Bhashyakara says, Yena ekantena jnana praptir bhavati sa upaya upadishyate. That by which one gains, certainly gains the knowledge. Upaya, what does that means? What is sadhanam? Which is a sure means of gaining the knowledge. Upadishyate, that's what Lord Krishna teaches or instructs in the verse number 39. Says here, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparas sanyatendriyah jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. So here Lord Krishna tells us, according to Bhashyakara, the sure means of gaining knowledge. Lord Krishna says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Shraddha. To Shraddha, the so-called Matu Pratyaya is applied, becomes Shraddha plus Vat. Mat or Vat. Here Vat, Shraddha Vat. Nominative singularity, Shraddhavan. Meaning one who possesses Shraddha. But here, that Matu Pratyaya is Prashamsi, is the Prakrishtayam, one who possesses Shraddha in abundant measure. Not just Shraddha. No, possess, everybody has some Shraddha. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. One who is abundant of Shraddha. What is Shraddha? Shraddha is generally translated as faith or trust. Vivekeswaramani gives a beautiful definition of Shraddha. Shastrasya guruvakyasya satyabuddhyavadharana सा श्रद्धा कथिता सद्भिः यया वस्तुपलभ्यते सा श्रद्धा कथिता सद्भिः. The wise people call this Shraddha. Shrat and Dha. Shrat means a Nishchaya, the conviction. So Shrat means Satya and Dha means conviction, the conviction that one has. What is that conviction? Shastrasya guruvakyasya satyabuddhyavadharana. That what the Shastra says and what the Guru says, Shastra Vakyam and Guru Vakyam, the statements of the scripture coming from the Guru. So we do not look upon Guru as someone different from Shastra. Ideally, that alone can be called Guru who is identified with the Shastra. Therefore, Guru really becomes a transmitter of Shastra. Since we do not have the direct access to Shastra, since our access to Shastra or Scripture is through Guru, therefore Guru Vakya. Shastrasya Guru Vakyasya. The words of the teacher and the words of the Scripture. So that they are Satya, they are right. That Shraddha or implicit faith. Now, this Shraddha is something that we always have. We cannot live life without Shraddha. We have Shraddha or implicit faith in what we call Pramanam in the means of knowledge. Pramakaranam Pramanam, that which creates the right knowledge, is Pramanam. So you are right now listening to these words. The organ of hearing is the Pramana, the means of knowledge, which gives you the perception of these words. If you're looking at me, then eyes become the Pramanam for revealing the colors and forms. So these 5 organs of perception that we have are called pramanam, the valid means of knowledge, for revealing or illuminating their respective objects. And the data that these organs of perception give us, we accept them in trust. Right now, when you're listening to these words, you do not question your ears. Hey, Swami, you cannot speak in English. I think he's speaking in Sanskrit, cannot be in English. But if the ears reveal that this is English language, you accept it. You don't question. You don't question when I say that this is an orange cloth. You accept implicit faith. Mind says, no, it cannot be orange, it has to be yellow. You don't question. Unless there is a reason. There could be reason. There can be some problem with the eyes or ears, in which case there may be reason to question. But normally we accept in faith whatever organs of perception reveal. That the attitude that we have towards the organs of perception, which are called pramana, is called Shraddha. I have the Shraddha, implicit faith, that what the eyes reveal is true. What the ears reveal is true. What my palate reveals is true. That's called Shraddha. Now here Shastra is pramana. When it comes to the self, Vedanto Nama Upanishad Pramanam. What's called Vedanta is Upanishad, and that is Pramanam. That is the valid means of knowledge. So Upanishad or Vedanta, which includes Bhagavad Gita, is Pramanam. We look upon that as Pramana, meaning the valid means of knowledge. In this case, valid means of self-knowledge. The organs of perception are the valid means of the objects of the world, whereas Vedanta is Praman. The words of Vedanta is a Praman for revealing the true nature of the realities of life. The subject matter of Vedanta or Upanishad is to reveal the nature of realities of life. Life consists of these three entities: Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. The individual, the universe that I confront, and Ishvara, the creator. Vedanta reveals the realities of each one of these three. It also tells us what's the relation between them. So Vedanta, of course, says that there is one reality of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Essentially all of them are one. In costume they are all different, but in essential nature they are all one. This is what Vedanta reveals. Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. Which means that students, I am Brahman, I am limitless. Now, trust in these words of Vedanta, which the teacher unfolds for us. Vedanta means this Mahavakya, Tattvamasi. You are Brahman. You are limitless. And Vedanta also explain why it is so, in what manner. So all kind of reasoning is provided, no doubt. And teacher explains it further to make it easily understandable by us. But when we are listening to teacher, what is the attitude in my mind? Is it a questioning mind or an absorbing mind? Is it a receiving mind or a questioning mind? Shraddha means it is a receiving mind, not a questioning mind. Asking question is one thing, that's called jignasa. Desire to understand is one thing, The questioning means that I don't think what you say is right. The questioning shows a lack of trust. So what Vedanta expects from us is that we possess a disposition of mind which is a composed, receiving mind. And that automatically happens when there is antahkarana shuddhi. It is that mind which is polluted by the reactions of raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, lobha, is a questioning mind. Because it cannot appreciate what this teacher is saying. And keeps on finding fault because it wants to justify its own perception or own opinion, and what the scripture says seems different, so you keep on questioning that. But when you go to the teacher with an open mind, Shraddha also means openness of the mind, willingness to understand what I am told. The word of Puja Swamiji, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Even if I do not understand something, I do not reject it. I keep it in the corner of my mind that I will understand later at an appropriate time. This is the receiving attitude of the learning attitude of the mind. It's called Shraddha. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. The knowledge can take place by shravanam, by listening to a teacher. And listening or shravanam will become effective only when I have a mind which is a receptive mind, which is favorable to understanding what I am being told, because it has trust in the teacher. It has trust in the scriptures, that they are my well-wishers. There is no reason why they should misguide me. And therefore I have an implicit trust that this is coming from my well-wisher. Not only well-wisher, but one who is also apta, means a knowledgeable person. Aptavakya, a knowledgeable person. A person who is not only knowledgeable, but who is my well-wisher. That trust I have in the teacher. If that I have, then I have a disposition of mind that then I can absorb what the teacher is unfolding. And then alone knowledge can take place. Shraddhavan labhate jnana. This is not a blind faith, this is a faith born of understanding. That a pramana we can learn from a pramana only when we have Shraddha in pramana. That we can learn what the eyes are telling us, provided we have Shraddha that what the eyes are telling us is right. Similarly also a similar Shraddha in the Vedanta, and therefore the teacher. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. In fact, Vedanta talks about the fourfold qualification. Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi, Shatka Sampatti, Mukshutvam. Of them, the Samadhi, Shatka Sampatti, the third one, which is the sixfold inner wealth, beginning from Shama, the peace of mind or tranquility of mind. Dhamma means self-control or mastery over myself, my sense organs of perception and action. Uparama, an abidance of the mind. Titiksha, forbearance, Shraddha. So Shraddha is one of those wealth, the sixfold wealth. But here Lord Krishna emphasizes Shraddha as the most important one. Because I think Lord Krishna feels when you have Shraddha, rest of the qualifications will come. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. A very important statement. But Shraddha just does not mean Shraddha. Everybody has Shraddha. What is meant by Shraddha is Sattviki Shraddha. Shraddha means conviction that everybody has. But in the 17th chapter, Lord Krishna will describe Shraddha, threefold Shraddha. Trividha bhavati Shraddha dehinam sa svabhavaja. Sattvaki rajasi chaiva tamasi cheditam shranu. Here Arjuna, everybody has Shraddha. Because there is nature of mind to have Shraddha. But Shraddha is threefold, born of Sattva, born of Rajas, born of Tamas. So when Lord Krishna says Shraddhavan, it means that the one who possesses this Sattviki Shraddha, Shraddha born of Sattva. Meaning when our mind enjoys predominance of Sattva, which is called the Antahakana Shuddhi, the purity of mind. That's the reason why Karma Yoga is a necessary preparation before pursuit of knowledge, at least. Because by Karma Yoga we gain the purity or the sattvic nature of the mind. So Shraddha also comes. It's there, but it becomes manifest. We cannot will Shraddha. I cannot will, I'm going to believe you. You cannot will. If it happens, it happens. Therefore, Shraddhavan means one who possesses sattvic Shraddha, one who therefore possesses a purity of mind. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. So one with Shraddha gains knowledge. Tatparaha sanyatendriya. Lord Krishna continues further that merely Shraddha is not enough. Tatparaha. One must be diligent in pursuing one's goal. Shraddha is there. I listen to teacher all right. I understand what the teacher says. But then many things that the teacher says, I have to implement them in my life. The teaching should not simply remain confined to the level of intellect or understanding. The teaching should percolate to my mind or my heart and therefore should become way of my life. That's the effort that I have to make. Tatparaha. One who is devoted. Tatparata means devotion also you can say. One is devoted to the objective, to the goal. That I am listening to teacher for a purpose. Moksha is the goal. And therefore the one who is devoted to the goal, that also is called bhakti. Upanishad says, Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tena Labhyah Tasesha Atma Vivrunute Tanum Swam. Yame Vaisha Vrunute Tena Labhyah. One who chooses a self, one who wants only moksha, that's the one who gains the knowledge. Therefore, tatparata, the devotion to what it is that I want to accomplish, and sincere effort to do what is necessary to accomplish that goal. Because one can have Shraddha, but that can be a lazy person. It's possible. Doesn't make much effort. So Shraddha is good. But Shraddha is called Shraddha when it results in tatparata, into devotion, into the diligence, into dedicated effort. Then Shraddha is really fructified. So true Shraddha fructifies into tatparata, into devotion, into diligence, into sincere effort of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, or of cultivating Samadhi Shatka Sampatti, cultivating Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. All of this is to be accomplished. Karma Yoga. So one does what is necessary in order to gain that knowledge. Whatever preparation I require to equip myself to gain the knowledge, I am ready to do. That's called tatparta. That also one may have. But it's likely that one's mind gets distracted. The Lord Krishna says, Sanyatendriya, one who possesses mastery over his sense organs. A diligent effort is required, but if there is no control over sense organs, then the mind will get distracted through the sense organs and therefore will not be able to focus on the effort that is required. Therefore, Shraddha, Tatparata, Sanyatendriya. The control over one's indriya, the sense organs. That's called the self-discipline. Shraddha, Tatparata, the diligence, and the discipline. All these three are required. Labhate jnanam. Then one certainly gains the knowledge. Jnanam labdha param shantim achirena adhigacchati. Jnanam labdha, having gained the knowledge, param shantim, the param shantim, the limitless tranquility, limitless peace. Achirena, immediately adhigacchati, one attains. Meaning knowledge in its wake immediately brings peace, tranquility. As we keep on gaining the knowledge, gaining knowledge also is a process. Shraddha, Tatparata, Sanyatendriyata. As we understand, as we grow, we find ourselves at peace with ourselves. Because the knowledge removes many notions and many complexes born of identification. This ahankara, mamakara, as slowly and slowly we overcome them, the mind discovers peace with its own self. And when the knowledge becomes abiding, then there is abiding peace also. Because peace also means ananda, means happiness. Achirena adhigacchati. Without any delay, achirena, without delay. So here the Tikakara has explained that just as when a lamp comes, it dispels darkness without the aid of any other factor. So also knowledge removes ignorance without any aid. And when ignorance goes, all the restlessness, unhappiness, distraction also goes. One discovers total peace with oneself and therefore peace with everything else. So here moksha is described as peace. Moksha may be described differently in different places. Param shantim, not only peace which is state of mind. Param shantim, the limitless peace which is unopposed to disturbance. Right now, I do enjoy peace of mind now and then, but that peace is being subject to being disturbed, is subject to being disturbed. That peace of mind is opposed to the disturbance of the mind. Param Shantim, a peace unopposed to anything. Meaning that peace being the nature of mind, and one abides in knowledge, then one enjoys that peace regardless of what the situation is. Nothing disturbs him. Nothing disturbs a wise person. But everything is in order. When I am at peace with myself, I am at peace with everything else. param shantim achirena adhigacchati. So this is the result of the knowledge. In terms, earlier also we say, Lord Krishna said, you see yourself as self of all and all the self in you, and therefore this moha will never come back. Here Lord Krishna says that this knowledge brings abiding peace, meaning effortless peace, which is more than simply the peace that is state of mind. It is peace which is the nature of the self. This wise person abides in the peace, abiding peace. With that we'll conclude our today's class. Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.